You're tuned in to the It's Real podcast with your hosts, Kayla and Andrew Yagi. Each week, we'll talk about what happens behind the scenes working full-time in real estate and share with you real-life stories, our successes and failures as we work to help consumers and industry professionals reach their real estate and real-life goals. Here we go.
It's episode 58 of the It's Real podcast. I'm Kayla and I'm a mortgage lender.
And I'm Andrew Yagi, and I'm a real estate agent. Hey, Kayla.
Hello, Andy. How are you today?
I'm doing really good. It's another busy week. We've seen some cooler temps. Fall's kind of here. And sugar beet harvest is in full swing for those of us who farm a little bit as well. And things are going really well.
Good. I always remember when I was in volleyball in the fall, I remember being on the bus and I always knew it was fall and beet harvest because of all the mud on the highways. And my mom would be like, be careful. That's what I always remember about beet harvest.
Yeah, I suppose up where you grew up, there were quite a bit of sugar beets, weren't there?
Mm-hmm. Dad would work hours and hours and hours and hours in beet harvest. So It's a busy time of year. What is typically beet harvest? What, like the time frame? Like, what does that typically look like?
So generally about the 1st of October until it's finished. So pretty much the month of October. I mean, some years, you've got really great weather and you're in and out quick. Other years you have rain and maybe hot temperatures that slow the harvest down a little bit, or sometimes we'll get below freezing and have to shut down a little bit just because they don't want frost in the beet. It's kind of a delicate crop. But one that certainly provides a lot of economic impact and jobs in our region, and very, very, very interesting.
And you're going to be out there, right? You're going to be busy like for the full season?
I have been out there, and so we kind of started, pre-harvest the end of August.
Okay.
And, just this past weekend started the full campaign. So yeah, no, I've been out there, kind of running my 12-hour shift, and it takes a lot of manpower to run 24 hours until everything's done. But, it's kind of a nice change of pace, and it kind of lines up really well with real estate to just my schedule. It works pretty well, so I can be around in the afternoons, to meet with clients as needed. Of course, I've got my great team that really helps me and enables me to be able to do what I do as well. And it just kind of, I kind of look at it as, my personal professional development time where I can sit and I can, listen to some Audible books, study some different things, try to focus on maybe eating a little bit better when I'm out there and not packing a bunch of junk. I was looking at, online, I saw something about a sugar-free challenge or something. And I thought, well, that'd be cool, but maybe a little sacrilegious if you're out harvesting sugar beets to do a sugar challenge.
Maybe a little bit. Well, that Diet Coke that you got is sugar-free. So
it is.
Cheers. Cheers, Andy. Sugar-free October as you harvest sugar beets.
What's going on with you, Kayla?
It's been pretty busy. I think there's just a lot of activity this time of year. I think there's everywhere in our nation. I think people get excited about fall, and I think there's this anticipation of the holidays coming up, and people are usually back in a schedule and football, and people are so busy this time of year. But there's also a lot of buzz about buying and refinancing, and so it's been a busy month already, and essentially I just think it's going to continue, even though we know that this time of year, as we go into November, December, it's going to probably quiet down in real estate. It just seems like it gets busier with events and festivities and all that. So I actually used to hate this time of year, Andy. I don't know if you knew that. I did not like fall. I loved summer. And I almost welcome just a little bit of a slowdown, like take a step back, because like you said, personal development, habits, getting back into, the grind after summer. I mean, summer is just we go hard in the summer. And so it's just nice to kind of get back. Like, we were gone every weekend in the summer. Now we're back in town most weekends. And so now I can clean my house and get my laundry done, like the little things in life.
I'll say I kind of agree. I never did look forward to fall because it meant the end of summer and going back to school and everything else. However, now having kids, and I mean, it's great to have some time during the summer to kind of, do things with them, but I
Yeah.
really love the routine and everything. And I really love the four seasons that we have too.
Mhm.
I can't imagine, living other places that don't have that. I think there's just a lot of beauty, and it's really pretty awesome.
Yeah, I was commenting on someone commented on my TikTok today. I commented, on how Fargo weather has been warm in October, and they commented like something to the effect of, could we have a warm winter like we did last year? And part of me was like, well, I feel like we didn't get a winter last year. It felt so like we didn't have snow. And so
Mhm,
I'm like, I actually thought to myself, I really do like the seasons too. So that's
mhm.
Midwest in us, I guess.
Kayla, you referenced rates and refi a little bit, and
Mhm.
I had seen something online. It looks like you have a little bit of I don't know if you're going for the Halloween vibe, a spooktacular refi, refi rate special.
I should have put that on there. Yeah. So in the month of October, we have a special for cash out refinances. So a lot of people don't know the difference. What's a cash out refi? What's a refi? So it's pretty simple. A refinance is when you're just paying off the balance on your mortgage, right? So if you owe 400,000, you are financing no more than essentially the loan payoff and perhaps the cost to do so. When you do a cash out, traditionally that means you're getting cash back. You are paying off a HELOC that was taken out after you did your first mortgage. Maybe you're taking out some funds to pay off debt or do some home improvements. And so we're seeing a lot of people wanting to take advantage of their equity that they have in their home. So at First International Bank and Trust, we are running a special where you can get cash out just like to do anything. We don't ask you what it's for traditionally. It's up to you. But normally those cash out refinances would come with a higher interest rate. So we are offering this month the cash out rates at the same as just a traditional refi rate. So a lot of people are starting to ask about it, take advantage of it, and essentially it's just a great way to get your equity out at a better rate.
I think that's really awesome, Kayla. And a cash out refi is something I never knew about, and I think I've talked about it before in past episodes. But it's that cash out refi is really what enabled me to kind of get started buying investment properties and going from
Mhm.
no properties to having a portfolio of about a dozen now. And because I have a lot of people that ask, are like, well, hey, like, how did you get started? Like, you must have had a lot of extra cash laying around. There's no way I could ever, get into real estate investing, and I would love to. And it's like, well, yeah, it's right here in this
Yeah,
October refi rate special.
yeah.
In that, most of us, we sit on so much equity, and even looking at those
Mhm.
rental properties that I've bought in finance, and was just telling you not long ago, like, I have a lot of equity in them, and it would be great, to refi, except for having a 4.5% rate.
Mhm.
But so
Except for that. Yeah, and except for that. But you wanna know what's
yeah.
funny is I just took an individual last month who is in a rate, I think it was 3.75% 30-year. We did a cash out refinance to pay off credit card debt that they had incurred for some reasons that were not expected. Those rates on those credit cards were in the 20%. And
Ooh.
then he also had some shorter term 5-year, 6-year debt. And so his monthly cash flow was all going towards these credit cards and this 5-year, 6-year debt. So we took his 3.75 and brought him to a range of about 6.5. So yeah, his first mortgage rate went up, but when you look at the total cash flow, we reduced it by hundreds of dollars. And so even going from a 3% to 6% rate, it really depends on everybody's scenario because
Sure.
if you just look at the cash flow, sit down with the lender and have them go through and say, okay, by going to a higher rate, yeah, your payment's going to be more, but when you're eliminating $1,000 worth over here and combining it all in one, you would be shocked to see how many people actually are going to spend so much less by doing that.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing that I love about you, Kayla. And I know there are a lot of great lenders out there, and I know that, because I don't interact with these other lenders, like we interact, I don't know all of these stories, but I really, I don't know how many lenders, really take the time to sit and look at the big picture with people and really dig deep like this.
It takes time, right? Like a lot of times lenders may not take the time just because might think, well, it's not worth it for me right now. Like they can't do anything now. When someone is not approved to buy a home today, I am not saying, hey, you're not approved. Check in a year. We're setting up a plan of action. Like you're not approved today for what you want to obtain. How do we get you there? Here's a 60-day, 90-day, 6-month, whatever it may be, plan. Same with a refi. Same with, hey, Kayla, I'm selling my house and I'm buying a new one. Instead of dumping all the proceeds into the new one, how do we strategize? And it takes time. And so if a lender sees you as just a transaction, they're probably not going to take the time. But if they do see you as wanting to add value, they're going to take the time. And so a lot of lenders maybe might not be educated or just don't want to take the time, or they don't think about it. But our clients, our consumers deserve that because they're not being taught that in school or college. And they're getting a lot of information from YouTube that may or may not be correct. It's our job to educate.
Mm-hmm. Amen. I love it. And it goes hand in hand with helping people reach their goals. And that's what I always say. And sometimes with clients, that's the fun thing about, someone coming in with a problem or, with a dream, or even I still really love Kayla, best and I have some people that say, well, my goal is really to go and just sell $1 million lake properties. And okay, those are really great. Like, yep, we all love selling those, but really what's most meaningful is helping people get into housing. Who don't think it's possible. And by sitting down and taking the time and investing in them when a lot of other people say, I'm not going to waste my time, and then helping them reach their goal. Kayla, just the other day, we talk about sugar beets. I was out hulling beets and I was driving, and I hopped out of the truck with our side dump truck that basically has to get tipped on its side, and I give the guy working the piler my ticket, and he looks at me and he said, "Wait, are you that real estate agent?"
No
And
way.
I said, "Yeah, I am." He said, "You helped my son buy a house." He said, "Thank you so much." So even though sometimes it's easy to feel like, okay, there are some pieces of this that is transactional in nature, I really love building relationships with people. And then again, just hearing, how much, a home has impacted, someone in their family. That's really meaningful.
I love that. And I always tell people too, you don't know, if someone just meets me for the first time or meets you for the first time, Andy, they don't maybe know what to expect. How do they know what they're going to get? I tell people, go Google me, go look at reviews. Like I can put a post up all day that says, look at what someone wrote about me, and I could create it and, make it look pretty. But if you go right to Google, you're going to find out about how everyone works. So, it's, I know it's scary taking that jump for clients, but that's where my heart really just bursts is when I see people leave reviews and share how we helped, because maybe they don't share at that moment, but when they do, gosh, that's why we're in this business.
Right. I was doing just that, Kayla. I was Googling you and seeing what I could find. And so you have quite a presence, 43 Google reviews, 35 on Facebook, and
look out.
lots of stuff out there. And I was Googling me, and yeah, everything looks pretty good too. But I do the same thing, Kayla. I tell people, hey, go check us out online. And I always tell potential clients, like it's so important. Who you work with is so important, especially like we've talked statistically in the past. There are a lot of agents, there are a lot of mortgage lenders. Statistically, over half of the agents sell, 0 to 1 homes a year. I kind of a chuckle the other day, Kayla. There was a brokerage in our area, and somebody just must have taken over their social media, and they were talking about how an agent is on fire and they've had such a great year. And I went and looked at the stats in the MLS, and they had closed 0 sales this year. They do have 9 listings, and half of them are under contract. But I'm like, guys, come on. Like, who are you kidding? And at least if you're going to put something out there, be genuine and be honest.
Right. And I could say all day, like, I'm crushing it, I'm killing it. But to me, it's like I can be doing 50 loans a month, or I could be doing 5. What matters is the quality, and am I helping people, or am I just churning deals, transactions, or families? Like, how do you really view your people? So whenever I see people post their success, I love that. But I also love when they mention, like, I got the ability and I had the honor to help these families, not just here's how much I did, but how you're impacting people. Like, that's what it's about.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
speaking of impacting people, Kayla, one topic I want to talk about today, and I'm going to reference an article from Zillow,
Mhm.
is 9 tips for finding a bargain price home. We still have a lot of buyers out there, and I'm sure you can
Mhm.
relate. Working with a number of people day in and day out, a lot of people are not, or maybe don't have the budget for something higher end or new construction or something, and but they need a home and they're looking for
Mhm.
something. They're looking for something that fits their budget and is affordable. So I think this article does a really great job of breaking it down. So without further ado, we'll jump in. Item number one, Kayla, look for homes that have been on the market for longer than 30 days. And when we were talking last week on the podcast, I'm going to just pull these stats up again.
Yeah.
We were talking about the fact that, hey, it is fall. Things are a little bit slower this time of year. And so even looking at, on average, a lot of homes before they go under contract in your market, Kayla, 30, 36 days.
Mm.
Um, and so as we look at that, people actually, if I find the right tab here, Kayla, there actually is a pretty good chance you may be able to find something on the market that's been out there for longer than 30 days. So,
I like
Kayla, I found just really quick, and then I'll let you interject. But this was an agent in Washington talking about it. How he talks about for every 15 days, we can usually negotiate 2 to 3% off the purchase price. Once it hits the 30-day mark, sometimes we can get 5 to 10. That's kind of interesting.
I like that. I've never had it in a actual quantitative number like that. I see clients that will send me a listing and they'll say, Kayla, can you run the numbers on this property? And I always say, at what price would you like me to run this at? Because I don't know what you're going to go offer at. So I want to make sure we offering, 350, 325. What are we thinking? And what I constantly notice, as you do too, is if it's on the market for a day or a couple days, we're at purchase price, we're over asking, but every single time it's been on the market for about that 30-day mark, they know I'm probably going to be able to get a deal. And I love this. Once it hits the 30-day mark, sometimes we can negotiate 5% to 10% off the price. Is that what it's like around here? It might be every, region or city is different, but what's it like in your area?
I think it really depends. It depends, of course, on the motivation of the people out there. So,
Mhm.
like, I have some sellers right now that need to sell in order to buy. They've got another house under contract. They're a little bit more motivated. I've got another
Mhm.
seller that, hey, they did a major renovation on a home and they have a certain income objective in mind. Yeah, they're probably not going to negotiate very much off, but it's, trying to find the balance you know, in in reaching your goals, maximizing your proceeds, but not letting the
Mhm.
buyer get away as well.
Mhm. Well, I think it's important too that, when you are deciding what to offer on a home, you are talking with your lender about what does this look like if I go 5 grand over? What if I go 5 grand under? And I think one rule of thumb that we've talked about before, but I'll mention it again, is for every, it depends on the interest rate at the time, of course, too, but for every about $1,000 that you offer above or below, it impacts the monthly payment by about $6, maybe $7. So when I have clients, I've got a client right now, he was going to put 7% down. We're going to do 5% down. And the amount of money that it impacted their monthly payment, they were like, wait, what? That's it? I could use that extra money to just save or to invest or whatever it may be. But in the end, it's usually not a huge difference when you're spreading that amount over 360 payments, which is 30 years.
Right. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Caleb, pro tip number 2 on this list, stay away from turnkey homes and extreme fixer uppers. So,
Mhm.
turnkey or new construction, obviously
Mhm.
probably commanding pretty top dollar. You also probably don't want, to look at that extreme fixer upper. We've had a few properties here lately that,
Mhm.
have been just really, really rough. And there are some buyers out there for a property like that, and some that, do have the wherewithal and the desire and the skill to do that. But this just talks about finding the homes kind of right in the middle. Kind of like a Goldilocks and the Three Bears, not one that's too hot,
Mhm.
not one that's too cold. Find the one that's just right, and go to work on it.
We'll call that the Goldilocks method, Andy.
Absolutely. I like it. Kayla, do you want to talk about point number 3?
Yeah. So obviously, lower priced alternatives to traditional single family homes. So when you are looking, this article talks about It says, sure, a single family home with a yard is the official American dream. Gosh, I can't tell you how many clients, Andy, did not make offers on homes if it didn't have a fence even. Which
Wow.
I get though, if they had, dogs and what have you, I had one even ask the seller to build a fence before they bought. But anyway, it says, thinking about multifamily homes that allow you to split the homeowner costs with others. So yeah, team up with somebody else for the mortgage. Can you add a co-borrower? I love this comment about a duplex ability. Yes, you can purchase a home and rent out the other half, or not the other half, the other unit. There are ways for you to reduce your monthly expenditure if you split the cost. And this talks about you could buy a duplex or triplex, live in one of the units, and rent the others out. So some clients, again, when inventory was a little bit better, we saw this a lot more, but clients would rent out one of the units. So it wasn't as much of a financial impact to them because they had the cash flow. So that is something that you could absolutely consider. And we see it often in a higher inventory market.
Absolutely. Wise words. Pro tip number 4, look for homes with less desirable features. So this talks about, and I can relate, being in a neighborhood where there are several cemeteries. So you might not want a 1960s split level with a galley or a cemetery, or being by a busy road. But hey, you might be able to get a better deal on these houses, Kayla. I think of a couple in our community where they were maybe on a busier, kind of side street close to a school. I had one house that was very, very desirable, and it went with multiple offers. We had 4 offers on this house this summer, and I had one down the street that was right at kind of the intersection where 3 roads came together, and it sat and it sat and it sat. It was also pretty dated, but I think again, you might be able to get the price down quite a bit on a particular property like that.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. Pro tip number 5, Kayla.
Do you want me to take this one, Andy?
Go ahead. You could take 5 and 6.
So consider putting an offer on a contingent house. Oh, I have a story on this one. So contingent homes mean the seller has accepted an offer. Now, sometimes, if they have an accepted offer, they may be contingent on their house selling, right? So Andy, if I had an offer from you and it was contingent on your home selling, I might have some hesitation versus accepting an offer that someone has an apartment, let's say. And so I actually just had this happen. My clients actually had made an offer and it was contingent on the sale of their home. And another offer came in, less risky, and the sellers were able to accept that instead. So, when you come in like that and you don't have the risk of having to sell a property, and, because if you don't sell it, guess what? You might not be able to buy the new one, and that impacts the seller of that home. That could be a way for you to, obtain a home, even if it has an offer already.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I have a story on this one too. Look at foreclosure auctions. So if a homeowner can't pay their mortgage and defaults, then traditionally a bank will have it, will own it, and will sell it up for auction, or essentially just sell it traditionally in a foreclosure. So one thing to know about foreclosure properties, though, Andy, is that they are as is. So if you went and looked at a home, it's traditionally will probably be owned by the bank. And so when they sell it, it's as is. They're usually not going to be doing any repairs. So I actually have clients in contract as we speak, buying a foreclosed home. The amount of work that we did up front, the realtor, me, everybody, was substantial because we knew that if this home needed repairs, it would likely have to come from the buyers. And are they prepared to pay for that? And or what would the seller, in that case, the bank, be willing to do? And so what we did is they went in and looked, the realtor looked, and it looked pretty stellar. So home inspection came okay, and we were waiting on the appraisal because, again, it's as is, where sometimes you make an offer, inspection or appraisal comes back, and there's some items that need attention. The seller and buyer then can negotiate, who's going to fix that. In this case with the foreclosure, usually it's pretty set on, like, it's as is. So a lot of times those are cash offers or investors that are willing to spend the money. But these clients got a great deal on this property, saving thousands in the purchase price. So it can really work for the right people.
Oh, that's really awesome. I'd say a couple of other gotchas as well is sometimes if you're buying something in foreclosure, the owners may still be living there. So you
Mm,
may become a landlord and need to evict someone, which
mm,
isn't always everyone's cup of tea. And I mean, I've had some horrific rental property experiences with getting rid of tenants and all of the money needing to be put into these properties, which I was telling my new property manager the other day after she's dealt with a couple of tenants, and it's just like, I'm just so done with these people. And
mm.
said, "Yep, I'm with you, but like nothing phases me anymore. I've got my eye on the prize. I'm looking down the road at the long-term
The long
appreciation
game.
on the properties and whatever." But the other piece, Kayla, in Minnesota, if you get foreclosed on, and let's say the foreclosure is totally done, you have a 6-month right of redemption, meaning that I could get foreclosed on, have to get out of the house, and up to 6 months from now, I could come back and redeem myself. At which point, if
Mm.
you buy my house in foreclosure, it's not your house anymore because
That is
Minnesota has
crazy.
ridiculous rules
Mm.
protecting, that definitely side with tenants and homeowners who don't pay their mortgage.
That is crazy. That is insane. I wonder if there's any like wild stories out there about that. I'm sure there
Oh,
are.
I think there are. The only time the 6-month right of redemption doesn't apply, it can be accelerated, I think, to 30 days if you can prove the home was abandoned and that they left
Uh,
it.
how
But
do you
otherwise,
how do you determine that? Like how to like, hey, like
I think surveillance in a sense, and you
yeah.
have to be able to show that, hey, this house is vacant, change the
Mhm,
locks and kind of and do your due diligence. So if someone came
mhm.
back and tried to say, hey, I'm going to redeem this, say, no, you abandoned it and you went
Darn.
back. So
Yeah. Oh, crazy.
anyway, kind of hand in hand with making sure you're working, with an expert on things like that is just in general, find an agent, Kayla, who is an expert in the area you want to live.
Mhm,
And that goes not only, maybe around the Fargo area and looking at different neighborhoods or someone who's an expert with new construction, but also out in the lakes area too. Make sure your agent is well versed in
mhm,
who sells lake properties and knows a variety of the intricacies that go hand in hand. I had a really bad experience a couple of years with a lender, Kayla, on Lakeshore, in that we had the property under contract and we weren't going to close for 3 months. And so the lender didn't put a title work order in. And Lakeshore can be really notorious for title issues, especially with,
mhm,
needing quiet title actions, something to be resurveyed, just screwed up legal descriptions. And so because this lender, and this was a type who's, kind of a financial advisor that, just kind of works through UWM, doesn't really do mortgage like you do full time, that kind of screwed up and actually ended up
mhm,
causing the clients to spend more money. So
oh,
again, make sure you have an expert agent, an expert lender as well, and kind of hand in hand, Kayla. Number 8, understand that the highest offer doesn't always win. I
mhm.
think you can probably attest to that.
Yeah, oh my gosh. It's crazy to me how sometimes that's all we look at is what's the highest offer, like what's the cheapest route. You get what you pay for. I mean, it kind of just goes hand in hand with anything in life. But a lot of times when my clients, not a lot of times, usually every time my clients make an offer on a property, let's say, Andy, you're the listing agent. Let's pretend you don't know who Kayla Calendar is. You have a letter that has that these clients are approved through Kayla Calendar. And how does Kayla work? Because as the listing agent, your goal is to sell that house, have happy clients. And so I will always pick up the phone and call the listing agent and tell them that the clients are fully approved. I didn't take a verbal pre-qual. I didn't just, write down what they make. We actually review financials, view credit, run automated underwriter, and by calling that listing agent, that allows them to feel like, okay, I know Kayla, I've heard of Kayla. Maybe they Googled Kayla. I feel good about this, but maybe my offer with the clients and their agent is $5,000 less. A lot of times that offer might win because they know how I work. Maybe they know how the realtor, the buyer's agent works, versus an offer from, I'm just going to say, Rocket Mortgage, and you don't know who's on it, but the offer is $5,000 higher. Truly, there's so many other ways that you can make a strong offer, and you can speak on this too, Andy. But from higher amount of earnest money, or maybe you don't ask for seller concessions, or maybe you have a quicker close date. Can your lender close quickly? There are so many ways to have a strong offer without it having to be the highest priced offer.
I think the other piece of that too, and like in our marketplace, and the same thing in Fargo, no doubt too. I list a lot of homes. I list quite a few more homes than I work with buyers, and that's just kind of how our business is set up. But one thing that I share with my clients that I think is really an ace in the hole, especially in competitive situations, is just the fact that because I'm listing, homes every week, I know who the players are that are doing the
Mhm.
business. I know what their offers look like. I know what they like to write for offers. And so I kind of know kind of what their game plan looks like. So if we know what other agents have shown the houses, and we might not always know who's offering, but we have a pretty good idea, we can kind of use that to our advantage, to kind of help us win. And if
Yeah.
people do work with me and they listen, and hey, we're not going to win all the time, but by and large, we're going to have
Mhm.
a pretty good chance and be quite successful.
Mhm. And I think
And
it's important to know, like, who you're working with, not just who are you being represented by, but, like, who else is involved in this transaction that maybe you can't help, or as a listing agent, you can help by accepting an offer by someone that you know, like, and trust too. You know how they get the job done.
right, without a doubt.
Mhm.
And Kayla, our ninth and final pro tip, which I think is definitely your wheelhouse, don't forget to explore government sponsored
Yes.
loan programs.
Amen. So, there's many programs out there for not just first time home buyers, but repeat home buyers. In North Dakota, you can be a repeat buyer and still get down payment assistance. So, it's important that you work with a lender that gives you options. Sometimes, Andy, I might have three options for a client, and I know that probably two of them won't be for them, but I'm going to explain it to them because I don't want clients to come and say, hey, Kayla, I heard of this program. Why didn't you explain it to me? I want to at least give a client an opportunity to explore it. So, with government or bond programs, there are ways you can get a lower interest rate. There are ways you can get down payment assistance. And in reality, I mean, we're looking at sometimes rates of a difference of 2% versus traditional. So, make sure that you're working with a lender that, if it's in that state, that they have the ability to finance those types of programs, because it could save you thousands and or be able to allow you to make a higher offer because it's not going to hit you so hard in your payment due to a lower rate. So, the moral of the story is make sure you work with a lender that has bond programs in the state that you're buying and just explore it.
Yeah, I really love that, and I love when lenders direct individuals to products like this. And I have people that come to me all the time, and they're like, "Well, hey, you know what? I just want to look at this house. I don't know what I might qualify for." And I always tell them, like, hey, before we look, you're going to connect with a lender. If you don't have someone, let me refer you to a really great lender and look at the programs, because you might qualify for, like you say, some down payment assistance, or a really great product that might allow you to get into a home for little to nothing down. One of the tough things I see is we've seen even some agents still, and I know some of these products have kind of a bad rap at times, for tougher appraisal standards. And obviously it's been more challenging in the post-COVID era, competing against a conventional loan or cash. But I think people are using these products a little bit more, because there's less competition. But I'm still seeing, some agent negativity, like, oh boy, FHA, like, can't they do, a different type of loan? Is that all they can afford to do? And well, it's like, well, hello, when the people that are selling the house bought it, they bought it VA. Like, come on, like, this is a solid house. So I still feel like there's that unfortunate stigma with some of the
Yeah.
less educated people out there.
I'm glad you bring that up, Andy, because I felt that a lot too. Is I get a lot of pushback, and I don't even want to say pushback, but questions like, "Can't we go conventional?" It isn't always in the client's best interest to go conventional. I had a client, actually two in the last week. They've come to me and said, "Hey, my realtor says I should go conventional," which I understand. Let's talk about it. But that's why I prep my clients at the beginning. We're going FHA for this reason, because, Andy, if they have higher amounts of debt, FHA can be better because it allows that flexibility. If they have a lower credit score, they're going to be able to see more competitive interest rates for FHA because they're not getting penalized as much versus conventional. And one other thing that people forget about is monthly mortgage insurance. If you have a lower credit score and higher debt, you might be paying, let's say, $280 a month for mortgage insurance, when if you were to go FHA, it's a flat amount of a certain percentage of the loan amount, and it might be $78 a month. So if we're really talking about consumer affordability and a client wanting to afford, let's just say $2,000 a month in a payment, switching to conventional might mean a $2,400 payment. So what is the goal here? Is it to get the client into the house, or is it to get the client into a house that they can afford and afford comfortably?
Right. Absolutely. I love that. And I love the options, and I love the lenders like you, Kayla, that are willing to take people down that path. And so I think that puts a wrap on our 9 tips for finding a bargain price home. And as always, if anyone has a question, is looking for a home, wants to talk scenarios, reach out to me, reach out to Kayla, or your agent or lender of choice. There are a lot of great options out there, I think, for just about anybody, Kayla. So, again, we're really passionate about helping people reach their goals.
Amen. I love this episode because I think everyone wants to know how to get a bargain priced home.
I certainly do, if you do, Kayla.
I do. Yeah. I'm glad we talked about this. Now it's fresh in my mind.
Absolutely. Well, Kayla, that puts a wrap on episode 58. We'll do it again next week. Have a great rest of the week.
I will if you will.
See ya.
Bye.